tell you a little story first. When Barry and I lived in Nashville in the late 90s, I was a frequent shopper, so to speak, at the Humane Society. I would stop by a couple times a week and donate supplies and play with the pets and check on which ones had been adopted since my last visit. Well, every now and then I would find an animal that was particularly challenged. Maybe it was malnourished or the coat was in a bad way, and I would take those home for a little while and nurse it until it became more adoptable. Well, there was one cat, his name was Max, that really drew my attention. One cold night, Max had crawled under the hood of a car and onto the still, warm engine. But when the owner of the car started up the engine the next morning, he heard this loud, horrible cry as Max's back received a terrible wound, probably about 6 inches long. Well, the owner of the car was kind enough to bring Max to the shelter, and the vet, he did what he could. But Max was a sorry sight. He'd no fur at all left on his back. And the fur he did have on the rest of his body had been cut very short to remove the oil that was matted there. And it was now kind of growing back at bizarre angles. They actually told me Max will never get adopted. So I took Max home that day. He was one of the sweetest animals I've ever had the joy of loving. It almost seemed to me that his devotion came from someone seeing beyond his wounds to the wonderful heart. Max couldn't hide behind a nice, shiny coat of fur. You had to be able to see him as he really was inside and love him. I sometimes think if Max hadn't had that terrible accident, we'd never have had the privilege of welcoming him into our home, and he may have remained a stray for the rest of his life. The truth is, it was his very wounds. Those were the things that brought him to us. Seems to me, don't you think that's often how God reaches us? When we feel at our very lowest, most unlovable, that's when he's able to bring us hope and purpose. Perhaps the truth is more that at our very lowest, at your most broken moments, we understand our need for him much more deeply.